My higher self looked right at me and said, stop worrying about the outcome. Do your work. Do your work, do your work, do your work, do your work. Stop focusing on the outcome. Hey guys, on this episode of the Army of Great Men, we're talking about psychedelics, and this is a very, very important disclaimer. This is not an endorsement to do psychedelics or to experiment with psychedelics in any way without the guidance and the help of a professional. Guys, this stuff can be super dangerous if used in the wrong way. Everything that I did, I had psych evaluations done to make sure that I was in the right headspace to do it. I had professionals make sure that I wasn't on any other drugs or medication that could impact the work that I was doing. Every time I used medicine in any capacity, it was sourced through professionals, so I knew what I was getting. It wasn't going to be laced with anything like that. Guys, I cannot stress this enough. This is not something to be taken lightly. If you are thinking about using psychedelics in any way, I am begging you, please go seek the help of professionals. With that said, welcome to episode 2 of the Army of Great Men. Imagine waking up 10 years from now, realizing you're the same person you were a decade ago. Can you imagine anything sadder than that? You know, like, if we're not here to grow, I'm not sure what we're here for, you know? So if you came back, if you look back 10 years from now and you realize you haven't grown at all, I just can't imagine a bigger waste, you know? So one of the funny things about growth, there's lots of little things that we can do along the way, you know, little things. Get in shape, go to the gym, have good habits, work on your mental health, educate yourself, level up, you know, all those things. And those are things that we have to do all through our life if we want to continue to grow. But then you get these other opportunities, right? Because here's the truth. You can grow every step of the way, but the real shit, the transformational, life-changing growth, it only happens with pain. Shitty as that is, you know, it'd be great if we could do it without it. But you can't. It's almost impossible. So the life-changing, the real growth only comes with pain. And ideally, you know, hopefully in this life, you're only going to experience real, true, gut-wrenching pain 3 or 4 times, right? Hopefully. So when you find yourself in that situation, when you find yourself dealing with, you know, a life event that causes that kind of pain, you have a choice to make. Because the pain's going to get you either way. So you can use it to grow, or you can let it break you. And there's only one way through it. You got to face it. You got to face the pain. You got to suffer. And you got to feel it, every drop of it. So when you get that chance, when you get that opportunity, when you feel that pain, you have to look at it the right way. It's not a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for growth. It's not. You're going to have pain in other times in your life. But it's maybe like a 3 or 4 times in a lifetime opportunity, right? You only get to experience real pain like that 3 or 4 times. And those are the 3 or 4 chances you have in your life to really, truly grow as a person. So when you feel that pain, there's only one thing to do. You got to embrace it. You got to face it. And you got to feel it. That's it. There's only one way through it. If you run from that pain, you're still going to feel it. You're just going to numb it with other things. You can numb it with booze or drugs or become a workaholic, do anything you can to distract yourself. You can do that, but you won't grow from it. So then you'll have wasted it. You'll have gone through a bunch of shit. You'll have suffered a bunch of consequences, but you won't be better for it. In fact, you'll be worse. So it's not much of a choice, you know? The beauty of the pain is if you feel it. And if you suffer, the beauty of that is not only do you get the gift of growth, but when it's over, it's over. Today we're going to talk about how to deal with it, how to face the pain. Little tricks I've learned that'll help you get through it. Let's go. So what do you do when you encounter this pain? I talked about this on the first episode. There's only one way through it. You got to feel it. You got to climb that mountain, as hard as it is. So I'm just going to tell you my story and what I did. Everybody's got a different situation. Everybody's got, different ways to get through it. And not everybody has the freedom to do what I did. But one of the big things that really helped me is, I was humble enough to call a whole bunch of my friends and colleagues and family who've been through divorce, been through pain, who've been through loss, who've been through whatever, And I took every little, piece that they said. I'd listen to them when they told me the mistakes they made, try to avoid those. I listened to when they told me about what worked. I listened to the reward they experienced at the end. Then there was the people who I never got through it. The saddest part about that is they don't even know why. They're so trapped in there. I don't even know what you call it. They're just trapped. They can't get out. And they're going to be just stuck in this just perpetual purgatory. They're just going to be there forever because they're never going to deal with it and they're never going to move on. That's tragedy. That guy who 10 years after the loss, they're still stuck. They do everything they can to avoid facing it. They do everything they can to avoid moving on, feeling it, taking the steps they need to take. That's tragic. When I talk to people who are in that state, and I could see the things that they couldn't even see about themselves, that's an eye-opener, I'm not going to be that guy. I remember thinking that. I'm not going to be like that. No chance. So, I recognize that not everybody has, a network that they can call and people they can pick up the phone and call. But I really would. That would be one of the first things I would say is, I'm going to tell you my story just as a whole bunch of other people told theirs. And I found it extremely helpful. But I would strongly encourage you, if you're trying to figure out your own path, talk to as many people as possible. Get lots of perspectives. It'll help if you're humble enough to do it. Right. You got to be humble to learn from other people's mistakes and their triumphs and everything in between. If you do that, you can save yourself a lot of time. A lot. So anyway, the first thing I would recommend when you're really feeling pain, when you're really in it, take some time for yourself. If you work a 9-to-5 job, whatever, take some vacation time. Take your sick days. If you need a stress leave, talk to your HR department. Do that, right? These things are in place for a reason. You can do it. You can take some time. but when you have that time, don't waste it, right? Like I was in a position where I was able to take about 100 days off work. I had a team around me that sort of made up for everything, and I'm, super grateful for that. Not everybody has that ability, I know, but you could probably do 30 days, right? And so if you get 30 days, you got to go all in, right? Like no matter what, you got to go all in. But take that time for yourself to really, really sit and feel that pain. One of the things that I really struggled with early on after my little surprise, figured out really early that sleep was going to be a challenge, right? Falling asleep was a really big deal for me. It was really hard to do. I've always sort of struggled with that. And so dealing with stress and anxiety like this, it was a lot. It was really a lot. Man, I'm just thinking back, when you're so desperate to fall asleep and you just can't, well, try doing that for like 3 or 4 days in a row when you're feeling, pain that you've never felt before. Jeez. What a journey. Feels like 100 years ago. It's not that long ago. One of the things that really helped me, and I'm going to tell you a whole bunch of real simple things I did, but one of the things I did that really helped was my daughter had a weighted blanket. If you're dealing with anxiety and pain and things like that, a weighted blanket, oh my God. If you try it when you're just feeling fine, it won't feel like anything. Just feel like a heavy blanket. But when you're really, really suffering, you get that weighted blanket. Oh my God. It's heaven. It's such a beautiful comfort when you need it. That'll be one of the things I'd highly recommend. The other thing I'd recommend highly, as I said earlier, is find your network and talk it out. You got to talk about this shit. Talk about what they went through. Ask them their story. They'll tell you. People will tell you their story. You just got to ask them, right? Talk to the people who went through something similar to what you're going through, whatever it is, whether it be, the loss of someone you love, whether it be a divorce, whether it be, you lose your job. I don't care. I don't care what the source of your pain is. Talk to people who've been through it. Hear their story. It'll matter. I promise it'll matter to you. You really will. And they'll tell you. They'll be happy to because they remember. You forget the pain, but you'll never forget the process. And you'll remember what it took to get there. And you'll also remember the reward. And when somebody reaches out, they'll help, like every time. So listen to their story. It really is key. One of the things that was recommended to me, and this is something I didn't think I would ever do, psychedelics. I didn't think I would do psychedelics in a million years. My sister, who has coached a number of people through trauma, she it's what she does. I mean, she counsels people through the hardest shit they've ever been through. And she recommended that I go try ketamine therapy. I didn't even know what ketamine was. I had no idea. So I went around and I looked and I found a clinic here in the town I live in. I signed up. Most people use ketamine simply for depression. It's very, very effective for helping to cure and treat depression. You can also use it to level up, really level up. And I'm going to share my story today with the ketamine therapy. And I did some other work later. I'll probably save for another episode, but ketamine was really interesting. So I went, probably 75, 90 days, something like that. Man, I know about 60 days after my ex left. So I already done a bunch of work and man, I was just still so angry. And I didn't want to live with anger, like that's not me. I don't think anybody wants to live angry. Anger is a really healthy thing. It's a super healthy emotion. if you can get rid of it, right? Like if you can feel it, process it, and then let it go, anger is really helpful. But it can also be consuming, right? Like anger can also get you and consume you and get to the point where it turns to rage and then you can't get rid of it, right? It's like a fire. Once it gets too big, it's really hard to get rid of. So you gotta really be aware of your anger. And I didn't want to be angry anymore. I really didn't. So anyway, the process with ketamine therapy, and like no matter what city you live in, I'm guessing there are ketamine clinics somewhere near you. And yeah, you want to level up. You want to get to the bottom of some shit. You want to learn things about yourself. Huh. Yeah, I recommend it. But when I say that, I recommend it only under the guidance of a true professional. This is not something I would ever recommend you dabble in on your own. There are health risks. Also, not everybody is suitable for this, right? So the place I went to, I interviewed with both a psychiatrist and a psychologist, and in separate sessions, because they need to make sure that you're not, dealing with a bunch of other shit that, ketamine could make significantly worse. Like, if you're schizophrenic or bipolar, or you've got, other personality disorders or whatever, like they need to know that in advance, right? So, when I say that I'm recommending this, I'm recommending you explore with a professional to see if this is something that could work for you. So yeah, I found this clinic. I interviewed with both a psychologist and a psychiatrist. Once they deemed me to be a suitable candidate for this, then I sort of got on the waiting list, and so you go in, and it's a really simple process. They don't even really like guide you when you're in the medicine. You just take it, and mine was with a nasal spray, and I think each spray was like 10 milligrams or something. And I signed up for 8 sessions over the course of a month, so 2 a week for a month. And they start you off pretty slow and then gradually give you more. And so they've got a nurse there who will, she monitors your, like your blood pressure and stuff. So, they'll come check in on you. But really when you do this, you put a sleep mask on, you put some earbuds in, they give you some kind of this specific playlist from Maps to listen to. And each time you go for a ride and sort of process it after. So I'll just walk you through what my 8 sessions were about. And it's interesting. So when I tell you about this, like when it was happening, I was confused, but right after I would go and journal and talk it out with my sister and my friend Ryan, and sort of figure out, what it meant. Sort of like analyzing a dream, when you're having your dream, maybe you don't know what it means. And then after, if you kind of, write it down and figure it out, you can figure out, oh shoot, yeah, that's what it meant. It's sort of like that. So it really helps to have somebody to sort of talk it out with. So the first session was 60 milligrams, and it was really just a toe dip, right? Like just a toe dip. And I thought I could go in and control where this went. Yeah, no, that's not happening. You really have to surrender. So I went in and I was like, okay, I'm going to let go of my anger and resentment towards my ex-wife. And, that's what I'm going to do. So I get in there, the medicine starts working, and I'm trying to, picture her so I can start forgiving her. And I couldn't remember what she looked like. I couldn't remember her name. I couldn't remember her face. Couldn't remember what color hair she had. I couldn't remember how tall she was. Then I couldn't remember my kids' names. And after a little while, I sort of went, geez, was that all a dream? Like maybe I wasn't even married. Maybe I didn't have these kids. Maybe it was really weird. And the more I tried to focus on them, the more I couldn't, the more I had no recollection of them. And so you sort of come out of the medicine, you start figuring it out, and you start looking at things and start to analyze it. And if you do it when you're still kind of in the medicine, you can sort of be like half in a dream, half awake, and maybe figure out some things. And so what I figured out is this isn't about them. It's about me. It has nothing to do with them or anybody else. This is my journey. And as much as I love my kids and I wanted to be better for them, be a better father, be a better role model, I can't do that if I'm focused on them. It's that old adage. You gotta look after yourself before you can look after others, right? There's a reason they tell you on the airplane, put the oxygen mask on yourself before helping those around you. It's because if you don't, you die and you can't help anybody. So you got to get strong yourself first before you can help anybody else. So that was a really great reminder for me. This isn't about them. This isn't about my kids. This isn't about my ex-wife. This isn't about anybody. It's about me. So that was the first one. Second one, I bumped the dose up. I think it was maybe 80 or 90 milligrams. And it was really neat. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of your higher self. The higher self is the spiritual version of you, the godly version of you. If you believe that you are connected to God, then you also kind of have to believe that God is in you, God or the universe or higher power, whatever you want to call it. I mean, everybody's got different verbiage for this. If you believe in something higher, then that something higher is a part of you. And so your higher self is the spiritual version, the godly version of you. And so when the medicine kicked in on round 2, I just saw that. I saw me. But I saw this version of me that I didn't even recognize. It was like this strong, poised, so in control. Even my posture looked different. Like every part of me just looked like this version of me that I didn't even think could ever exist. And I was just sort of watching myself, interact and go do different things. And I was just in awe. Because of course at the time I was so weak, so you see this strong version of yourself and you're like, God, I wish I could be like that. One of the neat things about ketamine is a lot of things are kind of blurry, but your own voice is like high definition. It's the craziest thing. So like that voice inside your head, you can have conversations with people and it's like crystal clear. It's the weirdest thing. Everything else is kind of blurry and fuzzy, but that is like, it's like you're wearing like the best earbuds in the world and you hear your own voice. It's pretty wild. So, I see this version of myself and finally, like I say to him, I was like, why the fuck can't I be like you? And then looked right back at me and said, this is you. You just have to let go of your bullshit. And then sort of went away. That hit me like a freight train. You just got to let go of your bullshit. And then I got really emotional. I just sort of sat there and let a lot of emotions come out. And what I realized is that I was never going to be who I used to be again. That was the day that I realized that I was about to transform, like really level up. And I was going to ascend to, another version of me. It sounds really corny and cheesy, and I hope it doesn't come across as arrogant. But when you're leveling up, like that's what you're doing. You're leveling up. Like you're really growing. And it's special, right? Like it's a really, really special thing you go through. Like I say, I knew I was going to waste this. I didn't know this is how I was going to get there. It's pretty cool. So the next session, after that, I started to let go of things. So the next 4 sessions or 5 sessions, I guess, was me letting go of bullshit. So the next one I go in, I wasn't even thinking about anything. I wasn't thinking about my marriage. I wasn't thinking about my kids. I wasn't thinking about my dad who had died. I wasn't thinking about my mom who was dying at the time of cancer. I wasn't thinking about anything. I just got sad. Like pure, raw, 10 out of 10 sadness. And I just started weeping. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Like tears just started flowing out of me. Not like sobbing, they just were just pouring out. And for like 90 minutes straight, it was the grayest, most pure sad I've ever felt. But you know, usually like if you're sad about something, right? Like it would be, oh, this happened, I'm sad, or this happened, I'm sad. There was no tie. And there was also no other emotion. It wasn't like I was sad and angry or sad and resentful or sad and this. It's just sad. And it felt like it would never end. It was hell, actually. Like this was not a pleasure cruise. And, you experienced sadness like that, like just pure sadness. It went on for like an hour and a half. And then when it was done, I called my buddy Ryan, who was giving me rides to and from these sessions. And I got in the car and he said, "How was it?" And I tried to get a couple of words out and I couldn't. And then I just started crying again. And it just kept going and going and going and going. And then I got home and I was still sad. And I let go of decades worth of tears, like all in one day. And then when it was over, after you cry and you feel that, like that empty spot right here, whew, multiply that, times 100. It was, I was so exhausted, let go of, I don't even know how many lifetimes of tears I let go of, but it was a lot. Like it was just a lot. So that session was about letting go of my sadness. And, when you let that go, it's a wonderful relief. It's a wonderful reprieve. It was great. The next one was I let go of inhibition. And I didn't realize it at the time, right? Like I say, when you're in this sort of dreamlike state, but it was just a whole bunch of feeling of just being totally free and uninhibited. Almost like flying. It's very raw, almost sexual. Like it was like really, really just like the rawest form of freedom, I guess you could ever really experience. Like just like nothing holding you back. Just fly, just go. Very hard to describe, but that's what it was like. Just totally losing any inhibitions. So losing inhibitions was really key. To feel that freedom was really quite wonderful. And sorry if this is kind of, if this sounds kind of weird, I'm just sort of letting you know this was my journey. The next one was really interesting. I said when I started this process, I didn't want to be angry anymore. The next session, I got angry. When I say angry, I mean anger like I've never felt. Like, see red. I'm 20 minutes in, and like if there were puppies in the room, I'd have kicked them. Like I was so mad. And I knew I couldn't be in that clinic anymore because I needed to get some rage out. So I texted my buddy, Ryan, who was driving me in. And I said, I got to go. And he's like, what? You just got there. I'm like, you got to get me out of here. And so I kind of snuck out of the clinic. They probably shouldn't let me go. It's actually kind of funny. I barged into the psychiatrist's office and I said, you need to start giving me more fucking ketamine. And he looks at me, he's, what? And I said, I need more. I said, write it down on my chart. I said, I can handle more. You can give me more. And I'm just raging. And he goes, are you okay? I said, yeah, I'm fucking fine. I said, I got to get out of here. I got to go beat the shit out of a pillow for a while or something. And he goes, we have a trauma therapist. And I said, I don't need your fucking trauma therapist. So he's got to go get mad for a while. I said, write it down. And then I laughed. I said, I promise I'm good. And I kind of gave him knucks. And he said, okay. So I left and played some angry, heavy music on the way home. And then got home and I went on like Spotify or whatever. And I just Googled angry metal or something. And I just played like the angriest songs I could find. And I took a plastic bat and a pillow and I just beat the shit out of it for like to the point of exhaustion, and just got out a lot of anger that day. There were some other things that happened when I was in medicine, but they're kind of personal and involve my ex. So I'm not going to talk about them, but anyway, yeah. So that was about letting go of anger. So you can imagine, right? Like those 3 sessions, I let go of sadness. Whew, what a relief. Let go of inhibition, right? Essentially fear. You let go of fear, and then you let go of anger. Well, just imagine the relief that you have at that stage, right? And so then, I'm processing this, and I've got all this. It's like an empty cupboard. Realized it was time to start, stocking the shelves up with things that I wanted. But to let go of those things was really, really a wonderful gift. Then the one after that, my higher self showed up again. And guys, each time the dose is getting higher. So I think the first one was 60, by this next section, I'm probably at like 160, maybe 180, something like that. And, so I see my higher self again, and I'm kind of having a dialogue, and I'm asking, what's going to happen with my divorce? What's going to happen with my kids? What's going to happen with my company? What's going to happen with this? What's going to happen with my mom? What's going to happen? Blah, blah, blah. I kept asking these questions, and then every time the response was my own voice laughing. And the more questions I asked, the louder that laughter got. So imagine, right? Like I'm sitting there, I'm trying to get some answers, and this asshole's just sitting there laughing at me. Like, what's so fucking funny? Like, what are we laughing at? And then it got real serious. My higher self looked right at me and said, stop worrying about the outcome. Do your work. Do your work, do your work, do your work, do your work. Stop focusing on the outcome. That was a big one. If you've ever studied the concept of outcome independence, what it means is you can't possibly know where you're going to end up or even where you should end up. So you have to let it go. Stop worrying about where you're going to end up. And if you do that and you simply focus on doing the right thing all day, every day, do the right thing, do your work, do the right thing, do your work. Keep focusing on yourself and the growth that you're doing. If you do that and you let go of the outcome, it's a guarantee you're going to end up right where you're supposed to go. But when you think you know where your outcome should be, you might try to steer yourself towards that place even though it's not where you're supposed to go, right? If you look back at the best things that have ever happened to you, the best situations you've ever been in, I bet you didn't even know you wanted them until they came into your life. That's proof that the universe or God or whatever, you, proves that you're going to end up where you're supposed to go, but you don't know where that is. So letting go of that outcome, that was key. So I had always, trusted that a little bit, but not to this extent, right? Like I still had all these ideas about how I wanted this to go and that to go and everything else. But that was the reminder I needed. Do your work, do your work, do your work, do your work. What a gift. So higher self says you got to let go of your bullshit. I let go of sadness. I let go of anger. I let go of doubt. I let go of inhibition. I let go of anger. I let go of outcome. And the last thing was doubt. And this was a much higher dose. And this was crazy. The only way I can describe it, it was probably the most impactful one, but also the one that I really have no ability to describe at all. It just felt like I was dancing with God. It felt like I could do anything, like Dr. Strange or something, like just kind of move your hands and, move mountains and do whatever. Felt power like I've never felt before, like a god, like really felt like I could do anything. And so it's all I can describe was that. I don't even know how to put it into words, but it lasted for a couple hours and it was just magical. It was incredible. So I came out of there feeling like really strong, right? Like I could do anything. And the last one was my favorite. It was just me and my dad. So I lost my dad 10 years ago. He was my everything. He was my mentor. He was my coach. He was my dad. He was my brother. He was my friend. He was just the best. And it was just me and him. He gave me a hug. And he said, "You can do this, Adam, son. You're ready. Go. It's time. Go live your life." It's really emotional, to get that hug with your dad, and it felt real, whether you believe in that stuff or not. It felt like the most real dream I've ever had. What a gift. So I'm going to talk in some other episodes here. I'm going to talk about some of the other work that I did, but I wanted to share, in those early days, here's how you get started. Here's how you start dealing with the pain. So get some sleep, right? That sleep blanket was magical. Don't mask this with drugs, or booze, or anything else, right? There's only one way through this, you guys. You got to suffer. And so when you do things designed to allow yourself to hide from that suffering, then what you're doing is you're delaying your way through this, right? You're delaying your way through this pain. You got to suffer. You have to sit in the fire and you have to feel it. That's it. And it sounds simple and impossible all at the same time, right? Sit in that pain. Whew. Not another way? Nope. This is it. That's what you got to do. You got to feel it. You sit in that pain. You don't hide from it. Talk it out. Talk to everybody you can in your network. If you've got a coach, talk to your coach. If you've got a therapist, talk to your therapist. If you've got a friend that'll be there for you, talk to your friend. Talk to as many people as possible. Talk it out. I know this stuff might sound silly. And if you're not going through any pain right now when you're listening to this, it's not going to mean anything. But if you're going through something and you hear this, it probably sounds like I'm reading your mail. Because I think everybody who's in pain, everybody feels it. And so, this episode might not be all that appealing to the widest of audiences, but for the people that need it, hopefully it helps. All I can tell you is you can do it. Like I promise you, you can do it. promise. No matter how hard this pain is, you can do it. And if you embrace it, and if you truly look at this pain as the gift that it is, keep in mind, you're only going to get to experience real pain 3 or 4 times in your life. If your goal is to grow, if your goal in this life is to become better than you were before, one step at a time, then when you encounter that pain, there's only one thing to do. You got to feel it, and you got to embrace it. You got to sit in that fire. And I promise you, if you're listening to this and you're feeling that pain, read my lips. You can do it. You can do it. It's not going to kill you. You can do it. That's it for today. Let's go.